moon.
All right. Welcome. If we could start with your name and where you're from.
Yeah, my name is Mike Berry. I am from Washington, D.C., the greatest city in the world, maybe contrary to other
Okay.
people's opinions.
Starting right off with the hot takes. I
There
like
we
it.
go.
Okay. And we are going to be talking a little bit about Legion today. First, so Adepticon's coming up, and we want to know what faction you're going to be playing, and if you're willing to share what your list is going to be.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't actually know right now. We're
Nice.
we're we're well into testing season. Since this isn't gonna be shown to anybody until after people know what I'm playing, I can spill the beans on what we're testing. Um, I put Geonosians through their paces over the last month or so. I've gotten about 30 games
Okay.
in. They're off the list, unfortunately.
Ooh,
They just didn't quite make the cut. Turns out white saves at range 2 are not really where you want to be.
weird.
Uh, Imagine that.
Weird.
I think overall our playtesting group is pretty firmly on something in the like Anakin Padme, Yoda Padme, or Bosk Pike Gunline kind of
Oh, okay.
sphere. Um, I think as far as like kind of like standard brews, I will say I took gin to Cherokee Open last week and was pleasantly surprised with how that
Really?
listed. Yeah, it was Han gin and with the concept being you reckless diversion gin and
With the danger sense and nimble?
yeah, and you took well, she's got a steamed leader too, and you just took some Ewoks to back
Because
that
why
up.
not? Because
Because
why
why
not?
not, right? Yeah. And it did
Could you
really
get
well.
C3? You can't get C3PO in there, can you?
I mean, you probably could take out
To
like a special
trigger,
forces unit.
no, the Bright Tree Village C3PO to trigger the crit guardianing.
Oh, because it's got gin, unfortunately, no.
Okay.
But that would be really good for sure. For
It
sure.
is, it
I
is.
found that it didn't matter, but I think overall the rebels are just like not good enough on turns. You're not reckless diversioning for that to be like anything more than a one trick pony. So I think we're on Republic, we're on Shadow Collective for sure.
Okay.
And we'll see how it pans out. I mean, I'll probably end up just playing Yoda Padme, even though it's pretty bad against Anakin.
Mm, okay. Okay. Um, what do you see are your playing strengths with,
I th
yeah, with
Yeah,
your lists and how you play?
I think overall, my play strengths are kind of coming up with unique answers for situations that just kind of evolve over the course of a game. I definitely like evolving to the game state, I think is my strong suit. I think in
Could you
that
give us
realm,
an example, kind of,
yeah,
for that?
yeah, I think the big example I think is just like the list play style of navigating from like Anakin to Yoda is that like you just have far more options with Yoda and being able to kind of like branch out. I actually really like playing bombing run with Yoda Padme. Like it's great. Sometimes you can really get in there. And a big piece of that is just being able to have the pieces in play to be able to execute on a strategy that maybe your opponent can't see, which I think
Okay.
is one of the strengths that Yoda I think presents. The Anakin Padme is just
Yes.
like it's like here we are. We don't have anything kind of everything's face up on the table with that list, right?
Right.
Similarly with like Pike's Bosk, it's just like, well, we've got Rampage and we're gonna do something a little weird
Hmm.
once, but there's you can't really get crazy. Guidance really allows you to come up with some kind of crazy wackadoodle solutions where you're triple moving a unit or like guidancing a unit into a fire support position that your opponent didn't
Hmm.
expect, or something to that effect. So
Get
uh,
some quad moves even. on Yoda
Yeah,
one pip.
for sure. You can really catch people off guard with certain kind of combos. So I'd say that that's kind of my strong suit, and I think I'm going to try and lean into that
I think Yoda helps enable that a lot.
for
Like
sure.
I agree. I agree. Okay. What about weaknesses or flaws in your style of play?
I think the biggest weakness to my style of play is I like the gunline fight with like a little spice. I don't like the gunline fight with like you're playing 14 act Ewoks and I'm playing 8 activations, or you're playing like 12 activation staps and we're playing bombing run. I definitely am. I'm used to practicing and training in a situation where we're fighting kind of like a standard kind of competitive gunline fight. That's where I live and kind of die as far as
Okay.
my strong suits go. So when it comes to what I don't want to see, I don't want to see wacky jank across the table for me.
Just because you have to come up with solutions that you're not used to coming up with, or
I mean, just because it really requires you to kind of play the game in a different way. I think I definitely have solutions for the Ewoks, definitely have solutions for like the
hmm
stapless. I've kind of got like a scripted playbook that I can go to there, but um, when people come up with creative things with those lists, I think one great example is I played against experimental droids at Cherokee, and he had bombing run in his deck with no vehicles. But it turns out bombing run is like really great if you're doing speed 3 moves with your special
yeah,
forces and core units.
that's
So,
true. That's true.
it's like it's stuff like that you like maybe haven't seen before. I imagine a lot of people will see that one specifically before Worlds, but I just like there's going to be stuff at Worlds this year that people are not expecting. So I would like to not get caught off guard by, for instance, like the first iteration of Pink Suns. Like
Right.
nobody was expecting that, and people that weren't expecting it at Worlds last year got hit pretty hard.
There's a ton of echo chambers out there that are silently brewing their own crazy stuff. Like that is definitely Worlds is where it all comes together, and you're gonna see them.
For sure.
Uh, cool. Next question is, what would be your fondest or most memorable in-game moment?
My most memorable in-game moment ended with a Tiger Woods like fist bump yell across the room at a store called Huzzah Hobbies. I was playing against Kyle Dornbos, which many of you may know from the Notorious Scoundrels podcast.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we were playing Sabotage the Moisture Evaporators. This was like pretty early on in Legion's career, like Legion's lifetime. And I was red on Vaps, and I was playing Darth Vader, Commander Darth Vader, Bosk, and it was like a gun line. He was playing Luke Sabine, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. And I was able to double tap Sabine, kill her, and bounce away with Bosk to flip the script and essentially make me blue on Vaps.
Yeah.
Um, which was a big deal. Many people that know Kyle like know he plays pretty cagey. I tend to like to play a little bit more aggressive. I think nowadays it's actually reversed, but um it was one of those moments where it probably shouldn't have happened, but one of the things I really like about the dichotomy on Sabotage and Moisture Evaporators is it really forces somebody to gamble a little bit. You kind of have to
Yeah.
you
Yep.
you have to gamble a little bit and make a spicy play in order to change the game state. And it was one of those situations where I was like, well, if I don't do anything, I'm just going to lose. So let's bet the game. And I actually ended up losing Bosk on the end of that play, but the thing was that Sabine cost way more than Bosk, so it didn't matter,
Bounty
right?
aside is
Bounty
the victory
aside.
points. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, all right, I'm still up. Like I will trade Boss for Sabine 10 out of 10 times in that situation. And I ended up winning because he had to run his entire army into Vader to win that game. This was
Just
before burst of speed. This was, this was just speed one Vader with,
yeah,
no force choke, none of that jazz.
still
And
scary.
yeah, and it was an invite for the first Worlds. I beat Kyle out of an invite that tournament. So
Very cool.
yeah, that was definitely my favorite moment in Legion. And I literally like when Bosk made that play, I yelled across like, yeah. And like the entire store stopped what they were doing and turned and looked at our table. Uh, um,
Oh, that's
so
amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. Cool. Cool. How about fondest or most memorable game outside of Legion? Or sorry, not game, but moment in the Legion community.
I think my fondest moment, um, it's like it's like not an in-game moment, but it is like part of a game. So, but I'm gonna use it anyways.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, so Worlds last year, it was really awesome to meet all of the international people from just
Yeah.
across everywhere. And I think it was either the top 32 game or the top 16 game. I got matched against Killian Jung, and I think that's how I pronounce his name.
I
Sorry if
don't
I
know.
got it a little wrong. Uh, he's from Germany, and so like I maybe pronounce it a little differently. Um, but we had the most amazing game, and I ended up winning. It was by like a hair's breadth, and he just like at the end of the game, he came around the table and he hugged me, and it was like that. It was that sort of game. It was like we had such a
Yeah.
good game that like that's how we felt at the end. Like this was just like it was camaraderie. It was like
Yeah.
just like two people just having a good time, and it didn't really even matter who won. I'd say that as the winner, but like like it just felt amazing, and it was a really really awesome game, and it's just cool because I don't like if we're like haven't ever met each other and not internationally like separated and stuff. Like I'm not sure like all of the like that game feels the same or any of that. And it was just really cool. So I think that's my fondest non like in-game moment of Legion.
Yeah, no, that's cool. The brotherhood and camaraderie there is definitely a big part of what keeps, I'm sure, most of us coming back to these Legion tournaments.
Absolutely.
Our next question, what kind of list, so we kind of talked, oh, what kind of list do you want to play against?
Um, I definitely rebels every time. Give me rebels.
Oh, oh, tear, heart
Give me rebels.
broken.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I should say non bright tree rebels.
Right, right.
And to that effect, give me non experimental droid separatists. White saves that are not battle forces. I will take all day long.
Yeah.
Um
They
I'm
just
and
die.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I just don't want to play a ton of mirrors. I think I don't really want to see another Republic list, specifically Anakin. So like, I don't want to see that. I guess we're gonna maybe we'll talk about that later. But like, I actually think I would also like to see Empire. I play a lot of arcs these days. Arcs kind of eat the red saves for breakfast that don't have
Okay.
dodge tokens backing them up.
Is
Um,
that just the volume and dice or the added pierce they get?
It's just the added pierce,
Okay.
like the difference between arc snipers and regular snipers is that arc snipers pretty much always hit,
Mhm.
and it's just like we're always it's gonna be at least one save, and if you've got Exemplar or Yoda running around, like it's pretty easy to have a second aim token to make sure that you've got the pierce. So um, anybody sitting on the back of red saves that is not guarding their red saves with some sort of defensive tech, I'm also very happy with. So
Okay. Okay. What kind of how many do you think will be out there that are either playing the red saves or counter to red saves? Like what's the ratio you give that?
I am expecting if people have done their homework with me, which maybe they haven't, I am expecting at least 40% of the field at Worlds to be playing Republic or Pikes.
Public or Pikes, 40%. That
I,
is okay.
yeah, I'm expecting half of the world's assuming they're try harding and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like trying to win the tournament. I expect about 40% of the tables to be a combination of those two
Yeah.
things. Defensive tech's really strong. That's not to say that there isn't counters to it, but it's one of those things where in Legion, one of the strongest things you can be doing is not rolling dice.
Yes.
And unfortunately, leaning into offensive tech often requires you to roll dice. And leaning into defensive tech does not. So the lists that kind of rely on leading on the offensive tech, like sometimes there's going to be a game or two where they kind of sputter or kind of like, you know, don't quite get there. And, not that doesn't mean they can't win that game, but it does mean that the thing that they're doing kind of breaks down a little bit. And the thing with defensive tech in all of these lists is that it's just there 100% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. I think I could get behind that 40%.
Yeah, I to be clear, I don't think it's a good thing about for the game at the moment. But
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
think it's where we're at. I also to back that up, I'm not even sure if the defensive tech lists are the strongest lists in the game. I just think they're the most consistent.
Okay. Which playing how many games are going to be played? 10 games to win?
Yeah, I mean you got to go through I think it,
Consistency is king.
yeah, it'll be exactly. That's the thing, right? It's going to be 4 games probably day one, 3 games day two, and then
Oh,
I
okay.
guess I guess it's 2 games day three because I think they're cutting the top
It
four.
is.
So
Yeah.
it'll be 8 games, but still,
Okay.
I mean anything over 5 or 6, and you need to really if 5 or 6
Yeah.
and not being able to take a loss.
Yeah.
Um, you need that consistency.
Okay. And you think defensive tech wise, you prefer Yoda over like Obi-Wan?
Um, well, I guess at this point, if I'm playing Kenobi at this point,
Obi-Wan
if I'm
beat
playing Kenobi, that
LVO,
it's
right?
out of the bag. Yeah, I mean, I think the LVO list is like the Kenobi LVO list is significantly sub optimized for what it's doing. I think you can basically take a list that leans much harder into what that list was doing and is much more powerful. Um,
Okay.
it's possible that when you hear this, I'm running it, to be honest. I do think that
Okay.
the Soresu mastery with being able to deflect wounds is actually one of the potential answers to the defensive tech stuff, and that you don't really have to roll like your opponent is rolling dice and like taking damage off the backs of their attacks
Right.
potentially. Whether that's where we land or not, I don't know. It's definitely something we've talked.
Okay. Okay. It would be pretty good to see Obi-Wan get even more limelight. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
for sure. I mean, and it's very possible. We just haven't tested them enough yet.
The OG Republic commander. Okay. Um, so what kind of lists would make you nervous then to play against?
Dark Troopers. Dark
Really?
Troopers make me nervous. Yeah. I think the thing is that at this point, most people have eschewed with kind of running saber throw on Anakin. Yoda doesn't really have that many great answers. Even the Pike boss gun lines, like they've got a little bit of impact, but I'm not sure they can handle multiple Dark Trooper units. And I am quite concerned that there is going to be a bunch of people that show up with double
Mm,
darks and maybe a Gav tank or double darks and Boba Fett. And the thing is that I don't think those lists are incredibly consistent, but I do think that they can really ruin somebody's day if they
yeah.
just don't throw a bunch of natty crits.
No room for saber throw on Yoda. I know it's
I
only two dice, but for darks
yeah,
that
I
are
mean,
not getting any cover,
if if I thought that it was going to be a bigger portion of the meta, I might consider it.
that's fair.
But I think I'm in the vein of I'm gonna try and just like hope that the matchup
Cross
gods
fingers. Yeah.
give me. I do think that's a big deal in the meta right now is that I don't think there's really a best list, and I think you kind of have to take what you're good at and just like hope you don't get the things that counter you. Um, I think that's going to be a big piece in who ends up in the top 8 this year for sure.
Okay. Okay. That's fair. Any individuals, any players that you would like to play against or avoid?
I would really just like to avoid playing Kyle until it's later in the tournament. And that's not because he's good. That's not because he's like, won, a bunch of tournaments in Legion. It's just like we played against each other a lot, and it's like one of the maybe frowny faces about this specific worlds is that um getting paired against an opponent that like is on your team or really well is like it's an instant team kill, and that really sucks.
Yeah,
So I would like to avoid that for as long as possible. There's a lot of people that fit in that boat, but I would put Kyle at the top of it.
totally reasonable. Anyone that you would want to play against?
I definitely would like to play against a bunch of international opponents again. I think not anybody in particular. I think for the most part, the North American meta is like pretty clear, and like what we're doing is
Right,
like
right.
it's pretty defined. And I think internationally, it's not totally different, but it's different enough that I think it could produce some interesting game states that I'm not used to, which I think could be fun.
Okay,
Frankly, yeah.
okay. Totally reasonable. All right. How about a fun fact about yourself that others might not know?
Oh, gee whiz. I feel like I'm in a unique position that most people probably know a lot about me. But I guess I run a gardening company. I don't know. That's
Okay,
a fun thing. I run a gardening company. Uh, there's a fun fact. Yeah.
very cool, very cool. I'd call that a fun fact.
Yeah.
Our last question. Do you have any local stores or clubs that you'd like to shout out?
Sure. I am technically part of like I guess like three kind of different teams. I'm part of Fifth Trooper. I'm sure nobody here has heard of them, but I
Fifth Who?
am Fifth Who, Fifth Brother, right? Um, uh Big Brother, maybe. I'm also part of Imperial Terrain, check them out. And as far as like local groups go, I am part of the Capital Capos, the DC kind of team
Oh,
that we
okay.
are based out of College Park, Maryland, technically at Game Castle, but it's like a mile and a half outside the DC line. It's
It
really
counts.
expensive to put stores within the DC limits, unfortunately. So
Uh,
most
okay.
of most of our local stores are actually outside the DC line.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Cool. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
We look forward to seeing how you do at Adepticon.
Yeah. I'll see you all on the top 8.
That's no moon.